Chairman Napey, members of the committee, I thank you for hearing my testimony and for allowing me this time. I know we've extended our time. I felt it appropriate that a citizen of North Dakota have the chance to address.
Excuse me, sir, you just need your name for the record.
Yes, thank you. My name is Jerry Ketterling, and I am from Bismarck.
How do you spell your last name, Jerry?
Ketterling, Ketterling.
Great, thank you. You may proceed.
Thank you. For the record, I was born and raised in North Dakota, educated in North Dakota. I have an electrical engineering degree from the University of North Dakota. You will find later in my testimony that I spent 30 years away from the state of North Dakota, honing my career and honing my expertise in information security. I stand before you to ask the House Education Committee to support our efforts to return control over education back to the state and local administrators. Those who control standards control curriculum. Nobody would write a curriculum that doesn't meet a standard. The standard defines the market. If curriculum and standards are codified, then it is possible to automate the testing. This is what Common Core is all about, automation and bringing a closed-loop system. In theory, this could be good. In theory, this could be disastrous. The repeal of Common Core, despite how it has been characterized by members of the press, is not a partisan issue led by conspiracy theorists. I truly believe that this is the most bipartisan issue that you will deal with in this legislative session. Many people have worked hard to bring us to this point of debate. We are a grassroots, self-funded group of concerned citizens, parents, and grandparents, and professionals who have, in one way or another, been touched by Common Core. We are not alone in our cause. Democrats and Republicans in many states have joined together to right a wrong perpetrated onto the children, families, and teachers of their states. We wish to permanently change the dialogue of our state, the great state of North Dakota, and return the control over standards, state testing, and curriculum to our local education leaders without federal impingement. Finally, most importantly, we need to enact laws which protect the citizenry of our state from information gathering, aggregation, and mining without consent. Committee members, this is not a partisan political issue. It is not about right or wrong. It is not about placing blame. Mistakes may have happened. This debate is about what is right for North Dakota, what is right for the people, what is right for the children of this state. I know that each and every one of us here on both sides of this issue believe we are striving for what is best for the students, the families, and the teachers. I mention this in that order exactly because kids ought to be first. In this debate is about the quality of their education, which we are affecting. Kids first is the fitting motto for each side. Common Core and its akin high-stakes testing have been the focus of public debates since it has silently crept into our state dialogue, beginning in North Dakota on June 2nd, 2010. While there is generally no question on either side for the need of standards, the debate frames itself around three common arguments. Who is in control over the standards? Are they adequate? How much testing is enough? And who controls the testing? Privacy over student data and family data that is gathered through this testing. Who controls the security and privacy of this? Even the strongest proponent of these standards can come to a middle ground to realize that high-stakes testing takes far, far too much emphasis of time with little return of value to the current school year. And of course, only an information security professional like myself, who has over 25 years experience in that field, would lay at night and lose sleep at the risk of a data breach, whether it's intentional or not. I know that it is not conclusive nor scientific, but as a barometer to North Dakota, public opinion counts. I just happened to run across this last night or this morning from the Valley News. They ran a little poll and they asked a simple question. Do you feel North Dakota should replace Common Core education standards? As of this morning before I came here, 86% of the respondents said yes. 12.8% said no. These local numbers seem to resound with the many national voices on stage. Representative Casper has already gone through those. I will not go through those again. So allow me to edit. I want to make these next 2 points very clear. We stand united. We are not against standards. And on this accord, both sides, we do agree. Standards are necessary. We advocate that education standards such as our prior state standards should rest in the authority of local control and local development. We are not against technology. We are not technophobia. We are not against technology. We are not against technology in the classroom. We believe that technology dollars should be spent to improve the classroom outcome rather than the data analytics which seem to fuel only federal programs, rather than local needs. We believe that the statewide longitudinal database system and its sharing of data with third parties presents a significant risk to student and family privacy without our consent. Allow me to edit forward. There are difficult legal and technical issues to be dealt with over the lifespan of this data. For example, can a parent find themselves liable for their offspring if an information leak occurs about their offspring when they are an adult? Decisions were made when they were minors. That data is in these databases as an adult now. Who is responsible? In December 2011, the U.S. Department of Education changed the regulations governing the release of student data to the private sector without congressional authorization. The Federal Information Processing Standards such as FIPS 140-2 do not apply to state education data systems, leaving me as a professional in this field to wonder what framework is in place for security. Allow me to edit forward. The revised FERPA actions allow for many forms of data access which have been traditionally off limits. Prior to this rewrite, essentially opening the pathway for information aggregation, dissemination, and analysis, so long as it is related to the evaluation of educational performance outcomes. Seems reasonable, but for every zing, there's a zang. What security and audit controls does the state of North Dakota encumber onto their third-party educational data analysts? And are we planning and prepared to audit against these? They say it can't be hacked. I make a living doing that. I'm relatively sure that NDUS systems at UND and NDSU thought the same, and yet they made the news. In 1993, while living in Seattle, I founded an information security consulting called Enterprise System Solutions. I made my living assessing information security risks and by designing information security architectures and software. Through my company, over the years, I have served Fortune 100, Fortune 500, and governments worldwide. So I stand here as a professional, educated in the state of North Dakota, concerned over what the future risks this data collected from high-stakes testing will bring. I think we truly do not know. Do we really know which data is being collected and what can be inferred from this data? Are we enabling data aggregation, which can lead to future analysis? Perhaps analysis without consent. Editing forward. Are we opening our children to data inference, such as what Google and Bing have built multi-billion-dollar organizations on? Let's face it, you only give out your IP address and what you're searching for. Yet I assure you, Google and Bing know everything about your family. If this is ultimately to improve education, then what is the latency between testing and response? Clearly, for this to affect my child in this school year, the data gathered would need to be returned to the teachers in near real time so that they can react. Many questions, little answers. Editing forward. My experience is also personal, not just professional with Common Core. My experience goes much deeper than the underlying technological and privacy concerns, although those are high. I am a parent of 2 school-aged boys, and from 1985 through 2012, we lived in Seattle where I raised my family and started 2 technology businesses. Those 2 firms continue on to this day. The summer of 2012, my family made a decision to move away from Seattle for the betterment of educational experiences for my children. This was a big turning point in our life. I was leaving behind 30 years of my life and 2 companies I formulated. We were following a direction of faith. That North Dakota educational system would be better for my children than Washington State. At this turning point, our oldest son was entering the 7th grade. He has and continues to have aspirations to become an engineer. However, his elementary preparation in Washington State left much to be desired. We knew that in order for him to succeed in STEM, we would drastically need to change his schooling. You see, Washington State, prior to Common Core, went down this road of reform math and high-stakes testing. The common phrase was, "We teach to the test." As a career move, I had no intention, believe me, no intention whatsoever to return to North Dakota. I love North Dakota, but it is not a career area for my expertise. Faith has a great part of decisions such as this, and my wife once told me, "Honey, we should move to North Dakota because she was happy with the product." I was taken back by that, and I thought, well, that's simply not rational. So I began what you and me taught me to do, engineering. I went to about my data analysis. I began to categorize and organize states according to their educational scores, graduation rates, work outcomes, higher education costs for STEM. I'm looking for my 8th grader or 7th grader. What's in it for him? And there it was, the data-driven answer to our prayers. North Dakota consistently scored in the top 10 states. And in fact, looking at the middle school, which is where my interest at that moment lied, it was apparent that North Dakota was leading in math and science, placing 3rd and 1st respectively for 8th grade. It was becoming more and more evident to me why Boeing recruits heavily from the Midwest. Overall, year on year, North Dakota's public education system was far ahead of the majority of states when viewed across multiple educational reforms, presidential changes, and directions. Members of the committee, if education is leveled across the board, end to end, as in Common Core, if it's all the same, then parents are robbed of being able to make a move to advance their children, a move to get out of a bad situation. Isn't a healthy competition necessary to drive efficiency into our system? My answer to this problem in North Dakota, having been here for 2 years, by the way, thank you, my 7th grader was restored in his mathematics at Horizon School, and he is doing just fine on his STEM direction. My answer, however, when I found out that North Dakota had adopted Common Core, was not to allow him to continue with public education up to 9th grade. So I moved my 2 children to private education. I will suffer the double taxation so that my voice is heard through my ability to vote with my checkbook. In closing, let me leave with these final arguments. We have just heard from Dr. Milgram and Dr. Stotsky that Common Core, which North Dakota has adopted as our state standard, is not necessarily college and career ready, and in fact, it's arguably may not even be developmentally appropriate for age levels of the students of need, especially disability students. I am not an education expert. I stand before you as an engineer. But I can tell you I have read through all 72 pages of the comments included in the September 2010 Public Feedback Survey. This survey had a polling sample of 134 teachers, 4 parents, 1 community member, and 7 administrators, 1 principal, and 5 higher eds. Here are a few highlights of their comments taken from the Dakotans who reviewed Common Core. Number 1, I apologize, I had to renumber those, so please bear with me. Number 1, you are going to rearrange the whole mathematics structure that has occurred for the past decades. It's thrown out the window. Our scores rank at some of the top in the nation. I think if you want to ruin what we have built as a math teachers, go ahead, adopt these standards. Number 2, under current practice are socially promoting all students forward. I believe that no child left behind. In grades K through 8, these standards are guaranteed to result in more students below grade level in math each and every year. Number 3, who put this document together at the national level? Why is it that most individuals are working at colleges? I think I counted only 2 actual classroom teachers in the entire list. Not 1 primary level teacher, yet this is who is mandating what we teach in our classrooms. Number 4, the standards become the curriculum. a negative consequence to a very good process intention of improving K through 12. Yes, it is true, many high school graduates are not ready for college. It is certain, however, that these standards, in my opinion, do not promote the kind of student that we need at the college level. Number 5, the standards are poorly written. I feel that North Dakota already pushes its students vigorously, and we should stick to what we do best. And number 6, we consistently are at the top of our national standards and test scores, yet we are listening to states that we are above, telling us to change our educational practices. So those states need to look at what we are doing and implement our standards. I understand the definite need for standards, but these are quite ridiculous. By the time North Dakota gets on board, this is my favorite one, I love this teacher. By the time North Dakota gets on board, the rest of the nation will be dropping this, and then what do we do? Ladies and gentlemen, consider the fight. If we fight to keep it, and the rest of the nation walks away, what do we win? After reading through these comments, I am inclined to believe that the issues raised by North Dakota teachers resonate very well with the issues raised by Dr. Milgram and Dr. Stott's statements. And yet, we did go ahead with Common Core, and some are going to defend it. The question I leave with you and I raise is why? What is going to be gained from defending it? I remind you in closing that we are seeking the removal of Common Core standards, the return of local control over state standards, the return of local control over state testing and curriculum, and specific laws which protect the citizenry of North Dakota from information gathering, aggregation, and data mining without direct consent. I thank you, Chairman Nathan, and members of the committee for your patience and diligence to listen to my entire testimony. My apologies for running over time.
Thank you, Mr. Ketterling. Questions? Jerry, could we have you talk to my clerk, Don, and have you email us your copy of your testimony?
Yes.
So we have it? All right. All right.